Right, and Judy, when you want to begin, go right ahead. You're in charge.
All right. Good morning, everyone. The time is now 9:33. It is Friday morning, December 4th, and we are very excited to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to our December 4th regular, though postponed from the month of November, our regular parent council meeting. We're so happy to differently than in our past couple months. We are very excited to see the faces of our parent council representatives. So we're taking one small step, I guess, toward normalcy right now, rather than broadcasting live over YouTube and not having the rest of our parent council members in our virtual room with us. We are all able to be gathered here, so we have more of a way of communicating today, which we're very excited about. I want to thank all of you, parent council members, representatives, for being here this morning. And I want to thank those of you who are watching afterwards at your, hopefully at your convenient time where you're able to watch on the P-CCS official YouTube channel. So for all of you who are here today and watching later on, thank you very much for being here. For our just for those of you who might not be familiar with our parent council group, our focus is bridging communication between our families and caregivers of our P-CCS students and the staff and administration of our district. Now more than ever during this time where physically being in the same room can be a challenge and has been difficult, we have found that our focus is more important than ever, is to try to communicate and work respectfully and meaningfully communicate, working toward the goal of the education of our students. So my name is Judy Hart, and right now I'm serving as our parent council president for the school year of 2020-2021. I would like to give my parent council board members a moment to introduce themselves as well. I don't believe at this moment that our vice president is on the call. She does have a job that she also has to man at this moment, but Pam Cornell Allen is the vice president of our P-CCS Parent Council. I will then move to our corresponding secretary. Sophie, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sophia Salim, and I'm the corresponding secretary for P-CCS. Well, for our parent council for P-CCS.
My name is Andrea Schultz. I'm the membership coordinator.
I want to thank our board members for their hard work this year and in the past. We have really, I think they've done a wonderful job at committing to communicating not only with each other, but trying to keep this sense of normalcy for our parents so that we have a means of communicating not only with one another, but our staff and administrators. This has been very important during this time, so I want to thank them very much. At this moment, we can take attendance of those who are in the room with us. We will kind of do this in a dual format. So those who are here with us, we're gonna ask for the attendance of those schools who are here. And if you happen to be a parent council representative or a PTO leader who is representing your school, watching our parent council meeting at a later time, if you could please email us at parentcouncil@pccsk12.com, and we will record you for the attendance in our minutes so that we know that your school had a representative at this meeting. Let's see, Andrea, do you have the list for the attendance at this time?
Yeah, did you want me to read that off?
If you could, and then I guess we could just have our kind of like our step toward normalcy. If any of our parent council members are here representing their school, they can let us know at this time, and then later on we can have those who are watching email us.
Okay, I'll pause after each school so that they can unmute.
Right. Thank you.
Bentley, Bird, Dodson, Erickson, Farrand,
Here.
Field, Gallimore, Hoban, Hulsing,
Here.
Isbister,
Here.
Miller, Smith, Tonda, Workman,
Here.
Discovery here, East,
Here.
Liberty, Pioneer, West, Canton,
Here.
Plymouth, Salem, and
Here.
Starkweather. Oh, that was one for Salem. Okay, and then Starkweather.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Thank you.
With attendance taken, I wanted to bring our attention to the minutes from our October meeting, which of course was our special meeting, which was a Board of Education candidate forum. Nick, if you're able to bring up those minutes. Each of our members were sent the minutes from this October meeting after that meeting. It was a very successful Board of Education forum. We thought with 800 members who viewed this forum either during or after the meeting. So we'd like to have our members take a look at the minutes if you have a copy of it in your email. I know our board members have taken a look. It was 16 pages long, and I have to give a shout out to Andrea Schultz for recording during that meeting. And so we thank her very much for that. If I could get a motion to approve the minutes from the Thursday, October 15th meeting, which was the special Board of Education meeting. Do I have anyone who would motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. This is Andrea.
Thank you. Is there a second for this motion to approve the minutes from October?
I second that.
Thank you. Let it read that Sophia Salim had seconded the motion. All those in favor of approving the October minutes and archived for our parent council minutes, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those disapproving can motion with the term nay. Let the record show that our October minutes were approved by our board at 3-0. All right. With only one more item on our old business, I just wanted to announce that we still do have a one position open for our parent council, which is the position of recording secretary. We had our positions open from February actually until October. We had left those open and took any submissions of people who would like to nominate themselves or others. We do ask that it's a parent council member or active representative. So I just wanted to let you know that that parent council position of recording secretary is still open, and we will be taking submissions until that position is filled. All right. With those items behind us, I wanted to turn our attention to today's current agenda. And with so many things that we felt that were on the focus of parents and concerns with our families and students with all that is going on right now, it was actually interesting that during the course of planning this meeting, even besides the fact that we had postponed the meeting from November to December, it was just a very interesting perspective to watch how drastically different and how much change went on from the standpoint that our topics and the questions evolved so drastically with even just a few days. Within the time period of November 13th to November 16th, while our elementary students were still in class, the focus and the needs of parents and families changed so drastically in just a few short days. So the questions that we collected for today's meeting definitely reflect that. But I want to welcome here on our first item for our agenda, we decided to focus on the topic of elementary safe start. And I wanted to thank very much our first speakers who are going to be presenting on this topic of elementary safe start, which also has now included remote learning as well for our elementary students. So I very much want to thank Maureen Malloy, who of course has become a very constant fixture at our parent council meetings. So we really thank and appreciate Maureen for being here so often. Maureen's going to be presenting today on the topic of elementary safe start, as well as we are very fortunate to have 3 of our building level administrators. We have Ms. Letitia Thomas. We also have Jennifer Chambers, and we also have Kevin Learned from each of their respective elementary buildings. And we really appreciate you all being here today and talking on our first topic of elementary safe start.
Summer, the elementary team members participated in committee work to explore options and plan for a return to school. The beginning of the 2020 school year started off with 2 attendance options for families at the elementary level. One option was to attend the virtual academy, which included a commitment to remote learning through the end of the first trimester. And families were also provided an opportunity to join the Safe Start experience. With the Safe Start experience, families committed to their child attending school in person. While we started out the Safe Start experience remotely at the beginning of the year, the goal for this option was always to return students to an in-person school experience. And the decisions to move between the Safe Start remote learning at the beginning of the year and Safe Start in-person learning experience were very much dependent upon the metrics related to transmission rate and the local health department data, and then the available mitigation practices and the specific recommendations of the Wayne County Health Department. As I mentioned earlier, we started out the year in a full remote learning environment for both Safe Start and for our virtual academy students. And then in early fall, the Board of Education asked us to provide a recommendation for a new return to learn hybrid model, one that allowed for the 6 foot of physical distancing between students while in person when it was feasible. So our district administrators were asked to develop this model with support of committee members and present a new hybrid model to the Board of Education for consideration. And that occurred in September. In order to examine a new hybrid model, a steering committee was formed, which consisted of central office administrators and representatives from transportation, teaching and learning, facilities, nursing, and nutrition services. The purpose of the committee was to explore hybrid models that incorporated physical distancing where feasible and provide the best instructional experience for students. So the committee members reviewed information related to instructional delivery. We looked at health and hygiene practices. We brought in transportation, talked about cleaning protocols. And the committee also collected information from other Michigan districts. We worked to discuss the impact of the multiple models on students, on teachers, and on families, and a recommendation for the half-day model as the most instructionally sound option resulted from the work of that committee. From October 19th until November 23rd, Safe Start students attended school in person for 4 days per week in either an AM or a PM session. And then on the other part of the day, they engaged in independent learning at home when they were not in person. So then recently, as you know, based on recommendations provided by the Wayne County Health Department, the in-person learning was placed on pause until January 19th. As you may already know, P-CCS works really closely with the Wayne County Health Department to monitor local COVID-19 cases, including contact tracing and quarantine protocols for cases impacting students and or staff members. And that health division provides a biweekly update on risk levels for the community spread of COVID-19 across Wayne County, and provides guidance regarding the strict mitigation measures required to maintain in-person instruction. Our district has done an amazing job connecting and staying committed to the work and the partnership with the Wayne County Health Department for guidance. As Superintendent Merritt has shared in her community letters, we are completely committed to providing that in-person learning model for our elementary students. And of course, we intend to resume to in-person learning at this point in January for the Safe Start model. With our virtual academy students, they have continued to learn remotely and experience a daily combination of synchronous and asynchronous lessons. And currently, the Safe Start and the Virtual Academy daily schedule and remote experiences are the same. And the buildings for our students and our families when they were in person and now when they're remote again. Falls Elementary, who will speak to the experiences of students and staff and families during this in-person and the remote learning time. So Jen, what would you like to share this morning?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us today. I am more than happy to discuss with you both remote learning and in person and how that's kind of looked inside our buildings. As Maureen stated, over the summer, we have spent a lot of time, and we continue to do so, in committee work. And through, one of the things I wanted to say is through this pandemic, one thing that was really important to us was that we had a lot of common procedures in our buildings so that it looked the same. You know, and of course, sometimes that has to be, procedures have to be adjusted based on the unique needs of the building, but that is something that we've really, really tried to do, is work hard together so that things look the same. And whether a student is in Virtual Academy or Safe Start, it's very important to us that they all know they are still a part of our community. They are still our students. You know, at Hulsing, there's still a Hulsing Hawk or a Tonda Timberwolf or wherever that they go, they're still a part of our community. And one thing that is common too is so many teachers supporting each other. Our Virtual Academy teachers, they not only work with Safe Start teachers, they also work with Virtual Academy teachers at other buildings. So the amount of collaboration between staff has just been fantastic. And then, so as Maureen said, you know, we were in a hybrid model when students returned face-to-face. And I honestly don't think I can put into words how much joy that was for the staff and for the students to be back inside the buildings. And, you know, a lot of people were concerned because students were wearing masks and so were staff. We didn't have any issues with that. Like our kids, even our 5-year-olds, they did such a great job with it. And people say that you can't see facial expressions with the mask, but honestly, you could feel the smiles from everyone. It was just pure joy. We didn't even have kindergartners crying on the first day of school because they already knew their teacher. They already knew the kids. They were literally like skipping up to class to get inside the building. So The students did stay inside their classrooms unless they had to use the restroom. If some of our buildings do not have restrooms inside the classroom. So the only time they were leaving the classroom was to use the restroom. And then they wore their mask the entire time, besides when we did give a couple of mask breaks or when they would have snack. The teachers, while the students were in person, they taught social and emotional learning lessons. They taught reading and writing and math. And then when students were not with us, they would be having specials in science and social studies asynchronously. And see, you know, nothing compares to having the students in person, and there isn't anyone who doesn't want that, for all of our kids to be back full time every day. But what we do try to do is we try to look at what are some positives that are happening when they are remote. What are some, you know, good experiences that we're noticing, positive takeaways. And one thing that I think that we've talked a lot about is just the amount of collaboration that has really taken place between teachers and administrators and district departments. It's been incredible. We've always collaborated, but it's on a whole nother level now. So that's been a huge positive. And another positive of when students are remote is that our kids are really learning how to pivot quickly. They're learning how to handle frequent changes, and that's a life skill. And we know as adults that that's one of the most challenging life skills, is to have, you know, to be able to deal with change. And our kids are learning that early on. So that's a huge positive. And then they're also learning how to navigate technology in new and different ways. I know my 9-year-old is teaching me a lot. I thought I was pretty savvy, and he knows a whole lot more than I do now. So it's pretty amazing. In fact, a couple weeks ago, he invited me during the day to one of his Zoom meetings. I declined, but he was able to set up a Zoom meeting and invite me to it because he wanted to talk to me about something. So that's pretty amazing too. And then another thing is even our virtual academy students, some of them are in a class with students from other schools. So they're building relationships with kids that they normally wouldn't have met before. And, you know, one day they're all going to go to the park together, and I know they're going to remember each other. So that's a huge positive too. So to prepare then for the oh, wait, one more positive that I forgot to mention in my notes here. Is one of the huge things that teachers are saying is that they are learning so much about their students. They are learning about their joys. We are meeting their pets. We are seeing their favorite toys. We are meeting their siblings, and you know, we're getting a little more glimpse into their home life. And honestly, we're seeing what they need too. We're seeing more of what they need, which you might not have done if we were full-time in person. So then to prepare between remote learning and face-to-face, we really had to spend a lot of time with procedures about what that was going to look like when the kids returned to school. We spent a lot of time working with our building and grounds department, with talking about what cleaning supplies that we need, what the schedule for cleaning would look like between the two cohorts, what, you know, where we needed air purifiers and new air filters, you know, hand sanitizing stations, all of that took a lot of time. How arrival and dismissal was going to look, because, you know, you're actually doing that at least 4 times a day. So how was that going to look? We actually had to look at the physical environment inside the classrooms and re-engineer the space in there so that there was room for social distancing and to be able to, you know, clean more effectively and efficiently. We spent a lot of time looking at what supplies kids would need so that kids could have individual supplies so we weren't sharing everything. We spent a lot of time doing that, and then really taking a lot of time to communicate with our families about what was happening, and as changes happen, making sure that we were communicating those changes and getting feedback from all of our families too was really important during this process. And so I think that's like it from me, and I'm gonna hand it over to Kevin, the principal of the Erickson Frogs, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about things that we've learned throughout this process and things you might need to know.
Great, thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. And good morning to everybody. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm happy to be here with you today. You know, navigating the changes in how school is done since March, there are several things that we have learned over time and serve to guide our decision making. Many of these lessons are helpful, especially to our elementary families. You know, we're all experiencing this time in different ways. All of the students and adult stakeholders in the district have very different concerns weighing on them. So approaching the needs of our school communities requires additional care and grace during this time. For my purpose today, I want to focus on 3 areas of importance that we learned are helpful to families and to us as educators. The first is the importance of structure. And as Jen mentioned, we did a lot of work coordinating with each other and with the district. A lot of thinking went into creating structures that would support our kids. Whether students are at home, learning in the virtual academy, or remotely in Safe Start program, having a routine schedule, you know, a routine and schedule for days really helps. Schedules can and will be different in each household, and students do better when they know what to expect. Children find comfort in predictable patterns. And so knowing that about online learning, that was something that we needed to make sure that we had when kids came back face to face, were those predictable patterns. What can kids expect when they return to school? For students who are reluctant to engage in work, using first then really helps parents. So this is more on the online platform. It's really important to honor any feelings that kids are communicating about not liking online school or missing their friends. And having a first then structure in your house doesn't need to be an argument. But children understand the pattern of, you know, when you do this first, then you get to do this. And so that's a structure that we encourage a lot with our parents. We know our kids understand that pattern, even though they might not like it in the moment. As we've put together our plans at school for face-to-face, having a structure that anticipates change was critical for us. For example, at Erickson, when in the Safe Start, we used our desks and cubbies very minimally. Most of our students were using their backpacks as their desk so they could carry their supplies to and from school. In the event that if somebody became sick and couldn't come back to school, they had everything they needed to continue their learning at home. And so thinking through what structures we could put into place that would allow for change was something that was on our minds. When we transition between remote learning and face-to-face instruction, as we have seen this year, considering a structure that's familiar to children during the times of transition is important. And you've seen that even recently when we transitioned from the hybrid model of face-to-face to the remote, you know, knowing that we were planning to come back on December 7th. We wanted to make sure that we kept in the same structure that the kids were already in. And then we transitioned back to a more lengthy structure when we realized that we needed to pivot and extend that into the January timeline. Well, at school, the structure of protocols for arrival and dismissal, classroom, bathroom, what happens when kids are feeling sick, technology support and cleaning are all critical from the school standpoint to keep our students safe and healthy. It was important for us to explicitly teach our students and families the very basics of how to be at school in a pandemic, because everything we did was different. Our arrival procedures were different, both for families and for kids, even so much as painting spots on the concrete for where kids would stand if they were waiting so that they would be 6 feet apart. Where we positioned our support staff to support kids as they entered the building, where parents would park and where they could stand, and how dismissal would happen, were all retaught. to our entire school community. Bathroom procedures, how they entered the classroom. So that was a big part of our plan. We know that the structure of online and face-to-face resources needs to be organized in a way that students and family know how to access lessons and manage assignments, and that's really important. And how they could do that both in the face-to-face and virtual settings needed to be consistent in case there was that need for change. So structure was one of the big three that we learned. The second of the big three was the importance of communication. You know, in March, and Judy, you mentioned this also about how things change over time in a very quick manner. Since March, we have been continually inundated with updates because new information is constantly presenting itself. We recognize that not everyone gets their information in the same way, so making sure that all of our updates are sent to families using a number of different tools was important. And Nick in our communication department here in the district has done a fabulous job of getting information to us as principals to get out to buildings. So wanting to make sure that all of our updates were sent to families in a number of different ways. Districts and buildings might use a combination of tools like websites, email, robocalls. Some of us have street signs that are close to main thoroughfares that we are able to use to ensure that all families are aware of the latest information and can provide feedback when needed. As principals, we know our school communities very well, and we choose the combination of communication methods that best meet the needs of our community. I know that how my community likes to receive information isn't the same as how Jennifer's community or Letitia's community likes to receive information, but the information itself is the same. You can expect that the most significant information about our district's decisions or our responses to new requirements come directly from a Superintendent Merritt. She is the voice of our district. She's done a phenomenal job of anything that is district-wide. She communicates it so everybody is hearing it from one voice. And then our buildings always repost that same information along with other building information afterwards, just to make sure that anybody who missed her message can get it from us. Jennifer, I 100% agree with you. One of the biggest communication pieces has been the collaboration between our teachers. I was speaking with our kindergarten team earlier, or actually yesterday, and they were talking about how they're not only collaborating with their own team, Safe Start and virtual teachers, but also some other teachers that are in 2 other buildings as well are part of their collaboration team for their grade level. So they're not only planning together, they're learning from each other and communicating out together, which has been a huge, huge asset for us. And our teachers and principals continue to be the point people for parents to communicate any family needs, and we stand ready to help in any way we can. Lastly, the thing that we've learned is that our students are learning. Though our students may not be learning in the same way or all the same things, they are growing as learners, as readers and writers and mathematicians. They're growing in their use of technology and their ability to problem solve. Our students are demonstrating far more resilience and grit than we have ever seen in the past. And they're growing in their ability to recognize their needs and the needs of others through our social emotional learning lessons. At the elementary level, our focus has always been the growth of the whole child. And so this certainly means building a foundation of their academic skills, but also their self-management and problem-solving skills and resilience. And these aspects, which we've had a difficult time growing to this level, has grown by leaps and bounds. We know that our students can wear masks successfully, and they're happy to do whatever they need to do to be at school. And we all long for the days to get back to all day, full day school. but there are aspects of what we've learned through our experiences in 2020 that will remain part of our practice post-pandemic. There are silver linings to our experiences. And so I'm actually curious about any other examples that Mrs. Thomas or Mrs. Chambers or Mrs. Malloy would like to add from their buildings about what they've learned.
Thanks, Kevin. I have 3 examples that I want to share. And you've mentioned some of this, but I wanted to go a little deeper into detail. So students have become such great leaders. A huge part of the principal's job is to be in classrooms. And so we've continued that by visiting the Zoom classrooms and being a part of discussions and lessons. So I've seen students in breakout rooms where they are leading the discussion, they're sharing their screen, they're being kind to one another. Yesterday, I was in a 4th grade classroom and Zoom classroom, and one of the girls who was leading the discussion said to her friend, "You can share first." And they're really growing as leaders and in kindness, even with their teachers. So, you know, we're all humans. Technology can be weird sometimes, and teachers can get really nervous when their technology isn't working right. But I've heard children giving their teachers assistance on how to fix the problem. Student voice has increased. I've heard children advocating for their own needs, including, you know, when they need people to silence their or mute themselves. Also, when they can't see something on the screen, or if they just simply don't understand. So those are some highlights from field. I know that the parent council asked if we had any reminders for parents. And so Jen started off talking about teachers getting to know pets and seeing siblings and toys. While that has been wonderful, teachers wanted me to remind parents that there have been lots of reminders about stamina and focus, and it's helpful when pets or siblings are limited to recess or break times. So that's one reminder I wanted to give. Also, having a set workspace that's organized with the students' materials right there with them is important as well. Lastly, keeping cameras on. So it's important for the teacher to be able to see what's happening with the child, just facial expressions. You know what it looks like when someone's confused. And so it's helpful for the teacher to be able to see the child's face, also as a safety concern. Parents who may not want their backgrounds to be shown, there are lots of background filters, and teachers can help students with installing those. So those were some reminders for teachers. And then lastly, there was a question that Judy shared with us about tutoring. So currently, and this began on December 1st, the National Honor Society students at P-CCS are offering virtual tutoring to students. All of the principals shared with teachers a link that parents can use to sign their child up for tutoring. The tutoring is offered on Monday and Wednesdays. The key to filling that form out is that you have to log into your child's Gmail account and then access the form that way. So those are a few of the things that I wanted to share with you today. Thank you for letting us join in your meeting and having this direct contact with parents. Thank you.
Thank you all so very much. Especially for those of us whose students haven't been in the building yet, whether it's middle school, high school parents who are awaiting that time, or families who have their students in the VA. I just thought that that was a great view of how things are going. I mean, I know I was asking, you know, neighbors and different people, how are things going? And I probably polled a good, you know, 25 to 30 parents. And I have to say that out of the parents that I spoke with, those who had elementary students who were in the building, I got nothing but, oh my gosh, they're so excited to be in the building and things are so, just, I think the appreciation for the small detail of the normal day, even if it's not normal, for our students was so big. That was my feedback from parents. So I want to thank all of you, Maureen, for giving that district view. I think for those of us who have middle school and high school students, some of us, though we were trying to keep up with the daily detail or the monthly detail of what was going on in the process, sometimes it was hard to take in the whole entire board meeting, especially when they ran, 8 and 9 hours long, though we tried. That sometimes those details escaped us. So I really appreciate that. Maureen, we really appreciate your time today. I know that, Letitia, you had addressed very clearly the question of the type of tutoring and assistance that's available for elementary students. That was a question that came to us from a parent through our Google form. And I know, Maureen, I think this was part of your presentation, but if you wanted to address this was another question that came to us. And again, it was addressed in one of the board meetings, but it's so hard to keep up with the details. And the parent was curious as to why the 4 half-day schedule was chosen. I know that there was a survey that went out by the district, asking whether the 4 half-day or the 2 full-day model. And she did comment that, it's a hassle taking her children to elementary for that time, and she thinks the 2 full-day models was given. Are you able to just, I know that this is a repetition, but just giving a very short response as to why that model was chosen for our elementary day?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that forward. I wasn't quite sure how detailed to get, so this is a great opportunity. What it really boiled down to was the committee's work around knowing and understanding that any model we chose was not going to meet the need of every family and would be convenient or less convenient for different families for different reasons. So the core of our decision really centered around which was the best instructional practice for our youngest learners. And so if you think about a full day of instruction for a 5-year-old, let me just give that as an example, knowing that students have to stay in their seats and kind of face forward, and that was one of our mitigation practices to keep that 6-foot distancing wherever feasible. We knew that we believe that helping to kind of scaffold the approach to returning to school, getting used to what school looks like in a pandemic in a shortened version, and then working towards, and it's always our goal to get students back, at some point when the time is right, to that full day. So that scaffolded approach, it allowed for that. We also heard from families that there was a need to kind of reduce the screen time for students. And so we looked at what would it look like? So half day, you're on the screen. You may have some recordings when you're at home, but you're in person. If we were to have taken that full day model, like a Monday, Tuesday, or a Thursday, Friday, it would be 5 days for the child to have not seen their teacher in person or really live, because that teacher would be teaching the other students. And so the half day kind of gave us a readiness, or gave families, I should say, and students most importantly, right? The opportunity to practice school and have the closest experience to what we will get back to someday, which is that daily connection with their teacher. So we know that a half-day model is tricky for families. We get that, and if there was a better way to do things, we would. But it was really a concern for us around not having connection with teachers live for a long period of time, and also thinking about what we're expecting of our youngest learners with respect to navigating a full day with the mitigation practices that we have to have in place right now. thinking about lunch and recess and navigating all that. And so all of that can be found in a PowerPoint, or I guess it's a YouTube. I think it was maybe September 25th board meeting or right around then, where we actually put on the screen kind of the pros and cons. We compare the full day hybrid model to the half day hybrid model. And we were charged from the Board of Education to come up with a version of a hybrid model and really focus on the 6 feet and best instructional practices. And so, so those were the reasons, but more detail and more specifics, I'm happy to talk with an individual. Feel free to call me and I can talk that through with people anytime. Or take a look at that particular board meeting. I don't know if Nick, you have the exact date, but it was around September 25th, I believe, where that is really spotlighted. So, and then principals, all 3 principals have mentioned, like, we will work with families to the best of our ability to, we get everybody's story is different. We don't know what people are dealing with, and what you're dealing with one week changes to the next week. And so we will do all that we can. We can't fix everything, but we will do all that we can to support the families with the needs that they have. So I would encourage people to reach out to their principals if that half-day schedule is challenging, and we can see if there's anything we can do to help. So I hope that answers it.
Very, very much. Thank you. We are going to also address other questions that were submitted during the time that we collected Google form questions. I know Maureen and I had discussed this, that there are a lot of other elementary based topics of questions that the superintendent will address later on as well. And that's the idea of metrics and getting back to class, or the idea of the pause and beyond that. So we will address those questions as well later. Were there any questions or anything else that from our parent council reps who are here, either for Maureen or any of our principals? Right. Well, I want to thank you, Maureen, for sharing your insight on the district level. I want to very much thank Ms. Jennifer Chambers. I want to thank Mr. Kevin Learned, and I also want to thank Letitia Thomas. Each of you, I know that being a principal, even in a normal time, is a very busy schedule. And I just want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day and sharing your insights with us. For those of us who are awaiting the in-person, it was a real, great education to hear the details of that.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you. So we are going to go to our second agenda item at this time, and I have asked both Stephen Beaulier as well as Amanda Palukas. Each of them are brand new in our district this year, though it was an idea that the district was already implementing and planning for the future. Obviously, with the pandemic, the virtual academy became an idea that was implemented much more quickly and much more substantially than our original time frame had planned. But I want to introduce. So, Stephen, you are our coordinator, right? Our virtual academy coordinator for grades 9 through 12. And Amanda Palukas is our coordinator for K through 8. And we're so glad that we're able to have you here and be able to meet you for the first time here.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to speak about the Virtual Academy, to give some information where we are and where we're planning on going. So
yeah, thank you so much. It's I never turned down an opportunity to talk about all the wonderful things that we're doing here in the Virtual Academy, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So I'm Amanda Palukas. I am the K-8 virtual coordinator. Prior to coming to Plymouth Canton, I worked in the Wayne Wesleyan School District, and that's where I spent the first 15 years of my educational journey. I was a high school English teacher for 10 years, and the last 5 years I was there, I became the online program director for the district. I was part of the original team that created the idea for an online program, and then I was ultimately responsible for the growing and the direction of the program for those 5 years. I was also a virtual academy teacher for a couple of years as a part-time position. After my day was done with my students in Wayne Westland, I was working with the Washtenaw Alliance for Virtual Education, teaching courses for them. I do have a master's degree in secondary education, and I also have a master's degree in curriculum assessment and instruction.
Hey guys, my name is Steve Boulier, and of course I would be remiss without introducing one of the most, if not the most integral part of our team, Morgan Bone. She is on this call as well. She is a tremendous help, and she has been brought on. We were able to successfully swipe her from Bird Elementary, and she has been just an incredible asset. So I just wanted to make sure that you know, we properly introduced her as well. This is going on my 28th year in education. I started as an English teacher with Detroit Public Schools, been in a couple other districts such as South Lyon and Redford Union. There I spent time as an athletic director, testing director, district academic coach, and then prior to being here, I was a principal of a virtual academy that ranged anywhere from 250 to 300 students. Go ahead, Nick.
Okay, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about our K-8 virtual academy. Our teachers from Plymouth Canton are the dedicated teachers within our K-8 virtual academy, actually across all of our virtual academy. Our K-8 students have daily instruction that is both synchronous and asynchronous. Our students are connected to a homeschool, which is very important because they are still part of that homeschool community. Students receive all forms of support and services from their home school. So if they need resource room or any EL services or anything of that nature, they will receive that within the school. It's a little bit different in our K-5 buildings because of the high number of students. We do have some teachers who are from other buildings supporting our students. And students can participate in any sports or activities in their home building, and we believe that to be very important, again, to connect our students to that home building. One of the questions that comes up continually after this past enrollment period is, are we going to be taking any more students into the virtual academy? And the answer to that is no. The enrollment for the remainder of the year is closed. All of those decisions have been made based on the number of students who have enrolled. We've placed all of the students with teachers. Our classrooms are at capacity, and we can no longer accommodate any movement between Safe Start and Virtual Academy. So that is where we are with K-8.
So in terms of the Virtual Academy 9-12 offerings, one of the things that we made sure of is that when we did switch over to the Brightspace Michigan Virtual that some of our teachers were using, one of the worries was making sure that all of the teachers were P-CCS teachers. So yes, every single solitary one of our teachers is a dedicated Plymouth Canton Community School teacher. And as Amanda said, that it's very important to note that students are still connected to their home school, which means that they are still more than welcome to participate, whether it be virtually or otherwise in any of the extracurricular activities, which, you know, students can participate in any sports or activities from their home school. And what's also very important for people to know is that when they moved over to the virtual academy, they were still receiving all of their forms of support. If they were on an IEP or a 504, or if they were EL, they still received all of those reports, nothing changed with that. One of the other bits of confusion is, not confusion, but just clarity, is that there were one of two digital learning platforms that they could use that teachers were choosing to use. One was Canvas, which is probably one of the more popular ones. I also, teach at Wayne State University, and we use Canvas, so it was very familiar. And then Brightspace, or Brightspace is the technical, Michigan Virtual is the curriculum. So some teachers were using the Brightspace and some were using Canvas. Just it all depends on what they thought would best fit how they wanted their instructional model and best delivered to the students.
We also want to talk a little bit about what our enrollment looks like. So as you can see for elementary, we have a total of 1,892 students. This number changes a little bit as of Monday, but it's approximately 1,900 students in our program. And as you can see, the numbers are pretty consistent between kindergarten and fifth grade, with third grade being our highest number of students at 341. But looking at our kindergarten and first grade, which are exactly the same at 278. So we have a pretty good distribution of students at this level. Moving on to our middle school enrollment, today we are at 959 students. Beginning second semester at the end of January, we have an increase of 40 students, so we will be right around 1,000 students in the middle school program. And what we seem to see, K through 8, is it's very consistent in the number of students. We only have a 30 student difference between sixth grade and eighth grade. So we have kids really the same number, almost the exact same number of students across the board choosing the virtual academy option.
And moving on to the high school, you could see that they're pretty well the same, a little bit higher for the juniors as opposed to the seniors is the lowest. But you can see we have about 1,153 students total, with close to 300 in terms of 9th and 10th graders, again, a little bit higher with 11th graders, and about 255 for the seniors. It's going to change a little, not much change for second semester.
So this year is truly a transition year for our virtual academy. The district had been planning a virtual platform or a virtual academy for some time, but March hit and our plan was accelerated because we had an immediate need for an at-home learning experience. So with everything that's been going on this year, Virtual Academy worked quickly. We had to fill teaching positions, finding teachers in the middle of the year in a state with a teacher shortage has been challenging, but we have been able to fill our classrooms with certified, exceptional rockstar teachers. And we've been able to modify our curriculum to bring our students the best learning experience possible. And what does future learning look like through P-CCS and our virtual academy? First, the district, Steve, myself, the teachers, we have learned a ton the last 3 months about online learning and how it fits here in P-CCS. We are working very hard to move the lessons forward to a concrete learning platform with clear outlines for our families. There has been very positive feedback from our families who have actually seen their children blossom in a virtual environment. The virtual environment is not for every student, but those students who fit this, the student who needs a virtual learning have excelled in this area. And we're all working together diligently to make sure that we have a learning academy, a virtual learning academy is a permanent option for all of our students. We expect this to be a permanent academy within the Plymouth Canton Community School District.
And so one of the biggest suggestions that I'm trying to give people is that we do a newsletter once a week. With the one for this week was a little bit delayed. I'm still waiting on one little piece of information before I send it out, but it usually goes out on Thursdays, but it'll be going out by noon today. And one of the things that Morgan and I will do on the high school level is that we profile 4 students, one on the 9th, 10th, 11th, and grade levels. These are students that, based on teacher recommendations, are students who are excelling. Now, we're not doing this to be braggarts for these students or anything, but you know, if they, and one of the questions that we ask them is, what exactly are you doing to be successful? Like, if you could give one little nugget of advice or your knowledge to others who may be struggling in this online environment, you know, as Amanda said, that it's not for everybody, but it's been, a lot of it has been forced upon us during this pandemic. So even if some of these students who may struggle in the online environment just pick up 1 or 2 of these ideas, then it would be beneficial. And what's interesting is now I think we're up to 20 students that we have profiled, and a lot of it is becoming repetitive in terms of what these students are doing. You know, a lot of them are, you know, earning 4.0s with a very robust curriculum. And so what we did was we highlighted 7 of them that seem to be recurring themes. I'm not going to read, you know, all of you guys can read at your leisure, but, you know, some of them are being positive, understanding that this is unique times and that you can't get down on yourself. And probably the biggest one, which would probably be number 1, is getting organized and staying organized. I know for my daughter, I have an 8th grader and a junior, and one of the first things that we did was give them a whiteboard. So anything that any of their assignments that they have or any announcements, as they put it, and as you could probably see in my background, you know, just really big on whiteboards, and just making sure that they stick with a plan. Some of them are using electronic folders. Some of them are using, you know, just a traditional one. Next. And what we hear a lot too of students that they set goals for themselves. You know, it is a block schedule and it is a little bit different. It's not the traditional, you know, 6-hour days, but what they will do is they will put down all of their assignments on an Excel spreadsheet, and they'll set the goals to make sure that it is, you know, that they are meeting their deadlines, and also making the most of the resources. I mean, I've been going in, doing a lot of classroom observations, and a lot of the teachers are really pushing and asking students, making sure that you're showing up to the, making sure you're setting up one-on-one sessions. We are working with the counseling department here at the park, where National Honor Society students will be beginning a tutoring program, and making sure that they are just reaching out. And a lot of the things that the teachers are doing is that they keep offering all these external resources. You know, I know in math, for example, you know, Khan Academy is absolutely free and reinforces a lot of what we're doing, so that their students need to make sure that they are taking advantage of all of the resources that the park has to offer. Number 5. Nick? Yeah. And I've heard this from a couple of students, and this kind of goes back to making a plan, is when we do call students who are struggling, we hear a lot of, well, I fell behind and I just got really despondent. And so a lot of it that we try to keep students is making sure that you start on track and you stay on track. You know, it kind of goes with the Stephen Covey, first things first. Making sure that you are doing your responsibilities, making sure that you are not falling behind. And a really big one too is exercise. You know, sitting on your backside for several hours at a time it's just not good. Getting up and just walking around the block or calling up a friend and just, doing some jumping jacks or just taking your dog for a walk, getting those endorphins going, really is truly helpful. I know we have a Peloton at my house, and our kids are required to do 20 minutes a day. And they say that it really does help them maintaining focus and just getting the blood flowing. And finally, and learning to deal with setbacks. Hey, we're all going to make mistakes, and you just cannot let one bad grade or one bad quiz or one bad test kind of set you back. It's going to happen. So you just have to learn to deal with it and use it as a learning experience and understand that these are difficult times, and a lot of other people are in the same boat. And just, again, kind of reverting back to the first one, is being positive. So those are just some of the tips. And again, a lot of these are found in the newsletter every week. There are a couple really important announcements coming out for the Virtual Academy on the high school level. So if there's anything that you need to communicate to parents, is just don't archive the newsletters, that there are a lot of important updates that can be very, very helpful and really help with students, especially when it comes to monitoring student progress in whether do I go to Michigan Virtual, do I go to Canvas, how can I, if I just see a grade in my star, where do I go to get a little bit more detail? And a lot of that is outlined weekly. So that's what we had planned. Amanda and I will be more than happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
So here's the first, sorry, can I go ahead with the first question?
You go right ahead.
Okay. When will Virtual Academy start? And I assume that this is from the parents, and I assume this parent means for transferring Safe Start students. And is it still the same as December 7th? And again, I'm not sure about the meaning of the reference to that date, but perhaps that is when it was planned.
That is only for our elementary students.
Okay.
So the second trimester for elementary starts on December 7th, and that is when the Safe Start students will move into Virtual Academy. The high school and middle school will not begin until second semester at the end of January.
Which is January 25th.
Did we have any other questions for either Stephen or Amanda about Virtual Academy from any of our parent council reps or parents who are here on Zoom with us today? No questions. I want to thank both of you. I want to thank Morgan. Hi, Morgan, for being here and presenting. I know for being a Virtual Academy parent right now, I know that a lot of us parents, the decision to either go into Safe Start or Virtual Academy was incredibly, you were kind of like leaving, what you thought, leaving, an elementary school or a middle school, and kind of weighing the options of what, the decision was. And we kind of made it very last minute. I will definitely attest to the fact that our students' teachers have been phenomenal. The organization and the level to which that they are making an effort to communicate with us. I have gotten cell phone numbers from teachers, just ways that they have been, newsletters that come that I think maybe wouldn't have been done in a normal setting. So I just want to attest to the fact that we've been really impressed with the teacher effort to communicate in this virtual scenario. So thank you.
I'll make sure that they know that. Thank you.
We appreciate
Judy?
that.
Judy?
Yeah.
Judy? This is Gina. I was just curious, is parents who aren't in the Virtual Academy, is there a way for us to see that presentation with your tips? A way to access that?
So Stephen, did you hear the question?
Archive of this video, sorry, Steve, the archive of this video will be on YouTube, Gina, for everybody to see. So that's
Okay.
one
I was thinking of being able to print it out. Is there anywhere that
Yeah,
that's available?
Judy, will it be
in
in
that
the
format?
It'll be in the parent council minutes, right, Judy? We always put them in there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We've always taken, yeah, we will record that into our minutes because I think a lot of the benefits and the proactive perspective that you gave, Stephen, in your presentation, and Amanda, would, for right now, it applies to everyone, right? I mean, all of our students and all of our parents and families can benefit from those, for those tips. Thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate the role and everything that you have played on a, you know, a very not so normal year. So we definitely appreciate the options that you've given to a lot of our families.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
So our third focus on our agenda today is one that I know has been very important, especially for a lot of our high school, middle school students during this time. And we asked Mr. Ray Miller, who is the assistant principal of athletics and extracurricular activities as well at Plymouth High School, to come and present to us today, and he very graciously agreed, and I thank you very much for being here, Ray.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Hart, and we'll get going with athletics and extracurricular activities during the time of COVID. So I wanted to start off talking a little bit about the condensed timeline of, you know, back to March to where we are now, to get a understanding of, you know, where we've been and where we're going. So Nick, going down a bit, going down to March 13th, I think everyone on this call probably remembers a little bit of that week and, you know, what was happening in the world. And, you know, I was no different. You know, I was in this position, and I had students coming in and out of the office and seeing them in the hall, like, hey, you know, what's happening with school? What's happening with sports? What's happening with our clubs, our activities? And kind of just a crazy time, as you know, as we recall. So on March 13th, that Friday, it was shown that all school activity was suspended. Going into April 3rd, we knew that Governor Whitmore had the state of disaster directive, and the day after that, the 4th, that's when the MHSA officially canceled winter championships and spring sports. And just jumping into the winter championships, you know, speaking for Plymouth, we had a regional championship gymnastics team that year. And, you know, judging by the scores around other regions, you know, we had a realistic shot at a state championship, you know, if not a runner-up or a Final Four there. So that was devastating for our student athletes. So obviously we were on quite a bit of a pause up until June 15th. We were able to coordinate outdoor workouts, and we did that with limited numbers. We did that with COVID protocols. Those were our first COVID protocols. And, you know, continuing on August 14th, the MHSA announced that football would be moved to the spring. And a week after, that's essentially when our low risk sports started to begin, as well as our medium risk sports, like soccer, other sports like that. And going, again, kind of just getting the idea of what's been happening on September 9th, so almost a month after the MHSA decided football was going to be moved to the spring, they came back and they said, hey, you know, let's play football in the fall. And, you know, we did up until November 15th, when all school activity has been suspended. And, you know, that's kind of where we're at. I think it's, you know, this is a condensed timeline. As I noted in here, there's been various, like 15 different MHSA memos updates. So I kind of just put the ones I felt were like important, just to reflect and remind us where we were. But going into probably the really important question, right? Like, where are we today? What's going on, and what does the future look like? So I can say that the MHSA did have an update 3 days after they suspended activity. November 18th, and they essentially said no team practices until December 9th, and that winter competitions are going to be postponed until January 4th. Now, I want to make that very clear, judging by the timeline that was just shown, things are said and then we adapt, we adjust accordingly, right? So, as of today, the MHSA Executive Council is meeting, and, we're looking, as we have the whole time, we're looking at their recommendations, and we're also looking at our county's recommendations. So we're looking at, what does the MHSA recommend us doing, as well as our Wayne County Health Department. And from there, as a district, we make an informative decision. And that's kind of, been our process all along with how we've gone about activities and athletics. So I think the weirdest thing, being an administrator and during this period is that you don't know, all the answers at this time. I have parents reach out to me. I have student athletes reach out to me and say, hey, are we going to be able to practice next week, or whatever the situation is? And, I've grown comfortable saying, I don't know, I'm not sure at this time, but, when I do know, that's when I inform our head coaches, and that's when our head coaches inform our families. Jumping in the protocols. So when we were active, starting in the summer and all of fall, a few of our COVID-19 protocols included a daily student coach screening form. We did that through a Google form, face coverings and social distancing. I think that's kind of just the new norm of life recently. MHSA and National Federation of High School Sports, their sport-specific COVID return to play guidelines. Those were followed by our coaches. And on top of that, each club, each program was asked to submit their own safety plan to their corresponding assistant principal of activities and athletics. We've had team meetings virtually, as far as reporting positive potential and close contacts. Anything that would come to a coach, come to me, I would be in direct contact with our director of safety and security. And from there, they would reach out to the Wayne County Health Department, and we would make informed decisions case by case. Because I think being in this position, I've realized that every case is a little different. Even though it might have the same underlining structure of what's going on, every specific case is different with who interacted with who. So we've quarantined players and teams, based on the recommendations of the Wayne County Health Department. So going into this fall, coming out of the fall, we've had, really great success, as P-CCS. For Plymouth, we were the KLA Division Conference champions, MHSA regional champions, and finished 4th place at states. Our girls cross country team had an excellent season as well, won the KLA division, also MHSA regional championship, and finished 9th at the MHSA state championship. Going into Canton, I asked Mr. Crump, what were 2 of Canton's highlights, and he said Canton football. They had an impressive 8-1 record, also won the KLA division. The Canton boys tennis team won the MHSA regional championship. Talking to Mr. Beckler at Salem, he mentioned that Salem boys cross country won the KLA division, the conference, and the MHSA regional championship, and that Salem boys soccer won the KLA division as well as the MHSA district championship. So I think, I think such an important job of what we do in athletics and activities is to highlight the great things that go on. I could go on a whole presentation of a half hour of every little detail of every program and everything that's happened, but these were just a few of our highlights. On top of that, we had many all-state athletes. We had a few dream team athletes. So overall, even though the circumstances were challenging, we did have success, through athletics. The next topic I wanted to talk about, I just wanted to reflect. I think whatever your profession is, whatever you do, I think reflecting and learning and growing from it is such a vital part. So reflecting on the summer and this fall, I thought playing sports and resuming clubs safely has been our top priority here at P-CCS. I truly believe that with what we've implemented and what we've done. I learned from the summer that organized AAU sports, travel sports, are going to be played whether they're through the Mhsa or not. So I think a huge question, I think families that maybe don't have, their sons or daughters in athletics might be asking is, why did we play sports in this fall? And I think it's a fair question. And I think my answer to that is that, as a school, we've implemented these safety protocols, and we've worked with the Mhsa, we've worked with the NFHS on what's the safest way to play these sports. So I think that was a big push for why the MHSA said, or recommended that we do play sports this fall, because I did see firsthand. I saw travel programs that were excellent this summer. I saw them following protocols, doing things the right way. But on the flip side of that, unfortunately, I did see, certain programs not following some protocols that, we've implemented in the school setting to make things safe for our student athletes. Overall, I think everyone on this call would agree, activities in athletics, have such a positive experience. And, especially during the pandemic, it did provide some type of normalcy that I feel like our students that needed and missed. Following up on that, our protocols have made our activities look so different. But the students that I was able to spoke with during the summer and fall just mentioned the benefits of returning to play, whether the sport looked a little different or activity looked different. And I think, what I gathered from talking with our students is that they were just so happy to, interact with, their friends on their team, and just to be in a team setting. I think speaking from my standpoint too, it was so great to see our student athletes this summer. I was at almost every workout this summer just to pop in, to help screen. And, even though, like I said before, things are just weird, it was so great to have that interaction from a distance and to see our student athletes return to something and start being with each other again. One of the last things I wanted to throw out there is I really give a lot of credit to our students, our coaches, our parents, and our administrators for constantly adapting. Our students, like for example, basketball. If basketball is to resume this winter, there's not going to be a tip-off to start the game. So there's been certain, adjustments and things that, every sport has had to overcome and adjust to play. So, I give a lot of credit to our students for, embracing that challenge and saying, let's do it. Let's make the best out of it. And that goes with our coaches. Our coaches, not only do they focus on building relationships with our student athletes and X's and O's, but this summer and fall, they also had to, have a concern about, are our students filling out a COVID screen? Are they spreading out when they're able to? All these things that, typically a coach isn't asked to do, right? It's typically, be a role model, be there for those student athletes and, teach them the ways of the sport. That includes the parents. I thought the parents overall, I thought they were excellent. I think there could have been a lot more frustration with, our restrictions, whether it was, having 2 spectators per athlete, which seemed to be our, you know, the stance of the MHSA and what we followed throughout the fall season. You know, they are very understanding. I think their approach was similar to mine. It was, you know, if we can have our students play, you know, let's do that in the safest way possible, and let's have them do it. You know, it's important as a parent to watch, but, you know, if it's between letting our students play or letting, you know, us watch, I think most parents were definitely like, let's let them play and let's let them have a season. And finally, administration. You know, I think, you know, from everyone from, you know, the elementary, middle, high school, board office, you know, we had to constantly adapt and adjust. And, you know, I think, you know, part of what I did showing that timeline, really I could have added, you know, 10 or 15 more bullet points there, was just showing you, you know, at one point football was done, you know, and we were planning ahead to the spring and coordinating the fields, setting up officials and doing everything for the spring. And then it came back and said, all right, we're actually playing football this fall. You have 2 weeks, you know, ready, go. And we made it work. You know, we didn't complain about the challenge. We said, look, if that's what it takes, we're going to do it. And, you know, I think everyone, you know, even though this has been a difficult time, has had like a positive mentality, and, you know, we've made the most out of a tough situation. So those were, that's kind of what I had prepared. If there's any questions or anything that I can elaborate on, I'd be happy to do so.
I just wanted to say really quickly that I agree with you 100%. My son is in 12th grade this year at Canton High School, and he's the #1 singles player for tennis and the captain of the high school tennis team for Canton. And they had a wonderful season. They made it to regionals. They were regional champions this year for the very first time. They made it to states 3-4 years. And so it has been an incredible season for him and for his team. And it was like the bright spark in their summer, and it was a bright spark in the entire year. So it was something that they had aspired to do all year long last year. When they were in 11th grade, they knew they were coming in as captains. They knew, you know, they had all these goals set out for them that they wanted to do and all these things they wanted to accomplish. And the fact that they actually ended up having a season and doing so well in that season meant a lot to them. So thank you for letting that happen, and, you know, working with them so that they could do this safely and they could have this win. And it was, you know, a win for the entire school and for the entire parking. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ray Miller. I think the fact that some of our students were able to accomplish that and had those opportunities during this time is really a testament to your leadership and the other athletic leaders in our district. Thanks for that, because I'm sure that was very meaningful for a lot of our students during this time. So thanks for taking this all seriously and in leading them to be able to do this during this time. Hopefully, for some of us parents who haven't taken that step, you know, this is kind of a look at what might be possible during the spring and what things we can do to make that possible this spring or winter. Were there any questions for Mr. Miller before he leaves, from any of our parent council reps or any of the parents who are on call? We will also put your email in our minutes, and that way, if there's any high school, middle school, even elementary parents who, you know, want to reach out and ask you any questions, that we make sure that they're able to contact you. Thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, being that it was our third item on our agenda today, I want to transition to one of our district news pieces. We have Gretchen Ward on our meeting today, who is our Executive Director of the Educational Excellence Foundation for our Plymouth Canton district. And I know Gretchen had a few things to say in regards to some of the bright points for EEF at this time.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you, Parent Council, for allowing us, the EEF, to have this time. And it's nice to see everyone and have this format again. I love at Parent Council meetings because I not only get to share what we do here at the foundation, but I'm also a parent. So I feel like every time I come, I learn and grow as a district parent too. So thank you for coordinating this because I've learned a lot today. So for those who are watching who might not be familiar with the EEF, we are the Educational Excellence Foundation, and we're a nonprofit that is solely dedicated to supporting the Plymouth Canton School District as a whole. So like many of you out there, COVID has definitely made some changes to the foundation and our workplace here over the last year. So kind of like everyone else, I'm just going to give a few updates on what we've been doing and kind of how COVID has affected the work that we do. First and foremost, as a nonprofit, we rely on our community support to maintain our operations. And historically, that has been through our fundraising events. We host 2 major events throughout the year, which is a wine tasting for about 500 people, and then the Back to School Bash, which is about 3,000 people. So clearly, those 2 things did not happen this year. And that's unfortunate because while we are a very lean organization, we rely on those events to maintain our operating budgets. So we're in the midst of our annual campaign, kind of end of the year giving right now, and it's called Supporting Students and Teachers Through COVID-19. So we really look forward to having a strong response from that so we can continue to do the great work that we do here in the district. But that being said, we do have some really great spots and great opportunities to support P-CCS in a little different way this year because of COVID. First and foremost, when the pandemic first hit and everyone went virtual, the district was really working hard to gather PPE equipment. If you remember back in March and April, those were difficult to come by. So we had a community member that said, EEF, if you're willing to buy supplies, I will make masks for folks who are working at the safe food pickup locations. And so we were happy to do that. So that was one way that we were really quickly able to pivot. Not something we typically do is buy equipment for people to sew things, but we were really happy to be able to do that because that was a big need at the beginning. And to keep those lovely volunteers who worked hours and hours making sure our students were still fed. So from there, we got a call from one of our community partners over at Nissan and said, we'd like to make face shields. Can you would P-CCS like these? And can you accept that donation on behalf? So we were really excited that community partners like Nissan were able to do that. They made adult, large and small face shields so that it was another layer of support for our staff who were working in or outside of the buildings to have that PPE equipment, and it's still being used today. And then when school originally started, I was having a conversation with Maureen Malloy, who we saw earlier today, and said, how are things going? You know, is there anything how can we be responsive at the elementary level and what would be critical? And she said one of the most critical things would be for students, particularly our early elementary students, to have access to whiteboards, particularly while they're learning to do mathematical equations, keeping things lined up, learning handwriting, how to write letters. So we quickly responded and purchased whiteboards. I don't know if you can see these, but they're lined. So as students could practice their writing, they did have a lined whiteboard, whiteboard marker, and a drawstring backpack. So we packaged just over 3,000 of these and gave them to every pre-K student through 2nd grade in all of our elementary buildings, whether they were Safe Start or in person. So we were able to put those into hands, and hopefully students are using those and gaining those critical skill sets. And then finally, we were able to provide a classroom grant cycle this year, which just ended last week, and teachers have not been notified yet, so this is super secret, but we're going to award over $17,000 for projects. And it was really great to see these projects because so many teachers were really thinking about the virtual learning and what are the challenges that students are having, and wrote grants to be able to respond to that. So examples are social emotional learning materials for students in the elementary schools, particularly when they come back in the classroom and are having some challenges. At the middle school level, we received grants for executive functioning materials because a lot of middle school students are struggling with that. Different equipment for math teachers so they can write out equations and students can see it real time working virtually on the computer. So just really great examples of the passion that teachers have and wanting to respond to their student needs. So teachers are going to be notified for that next week. And that, I think, is probably the brightest spot of what we've been able to do during COVID, is meet those needs. And one thing that I was thinking about when Ray was talking, another opportunity that we have to support families. So we don't typically donate to families directly, but we do have sponsorship or scholarship opportunities for all of our high school athletes. If families are financially struggling, particularly during COVID-19 with loss of employment, furloughs and whatnot, we do encourage them to talk to their athletic directors, because we have pay to play funds. And so we can help provide scholarships for student athletes, because we don't want their family financial situation to ever impact their ability to play sports. And we have those for the middle school and the high school levels. So, you know, there's some things that we've been doing for years and years that COVID seems to make a little bit more critical these days. So lots of different opportunities that we have here at the foundation. If you'd like to learn more about these opportunities, you'll be able to see our grants. They'll all be posted on our website next week, and or make a donation to our annual campaign. Nick had it up earlier, but you can visit our website, and that's eefforkids.org. That's eefforkids.org. There you go. So those are all of our EEF updates. We're still going to be working diligently to make sure that we can still support the needs of the district. And I'm open to any questions, but I just want to say I appreciate everyone's time. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Gretchen. Those are some really important projects, obviously huge feats that the EEF is working on, and I know that it's great to hear about that, and I know that there are going to be families who are really appreciative of all of your hard work. Thanks so much for being here today and sharing those details with us. I want to turn our attention now. I'm so grateful and happy to see our superintendent, Monica Merritt, has joined us today, and it feels like almost a normal parent council meeting. I know I always look forward to looking next to me and seeing you walk through the room. On behalf of our parent council, I want to just tell you how much that we have appreciated all of your hard work, your sleepless nights, your details. As the person who has come into our parent council meetings and, you know, called all of our students your babies, and I know how difficult and what a tremendous feat this has been for you, for all of our board members who have worked on that, as well as all of our administrators. We know you're behind the scenes and doing more than we can imagine. So I want to welcome you, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Judy, and to the entire board. I have to say, when I first signed on, I had that same exact feeling of, wow, this feels like we're back in the groove of normal, and it really, really feels good. And so just appreciate always the opportunity to engage with our parents. As I always say, this is my favorite group to meet with, because just the connection that we all share is that we care about all of your kids. As you said, Judy, I feel like they are all my own. And this truly has been a challenging time, and all of the things that you said, I will agree. I haven't slept. I worry about every decision. I do not take any decision lightly. It is so difficult, but just know and trust that every decision we make, we don't take it lightly. We have the best interests of our students and our staff in mind. And I still remain so confident that at the end of this journey, we are going to have a story of triumph to tell. I believe it, and I know that some may not feel it and see it right now, but I do believe, because we are so strong. In this pandemic, I will say, with even the fear and anxiety that it brings out with people, it also brings out the good, right? And we've seen just so many amazing examples of that, with Gretchen sharing the work that EEF is doing to support our teachers, the work that our teachers are doing in the classroom. If it's in person or virtual, it's just been an amazing experience. And sometimes as we're navigating this other part of it, it's hard, you kind of lose sight of what the magic that's still happening in those virtual classrooms and hybrid in-person classrooms. But that's the reason that we're here. So just thank you for that acknowledgement. We will continue to do the good work. and it will be challenging, but it will definitely be worth it. So I always appreciate being here, having an opportunity to update our families, answer any questions that you may have. I do want to just give a couple of updates that are non-COVID related before, which I know probably we have a lot of COVID questions, but we are in a process of beginning our dynamic planning process. If you know, our dynamic plan is really our compass that guides the work of the district for the, usually we do it as a 5-year kind of compass, and our current plan is expiring at the end of this school year. Now, typically we would have taken a whole year to plan a new process because it does involve getting stakeholder groups together, getting feedback, really looking at our community, not just our staff, our students, our parents, but our business community members, our local universities, to say, you know, what do you see as the experience for Plymouth Canton students? What is that expectation? And so taking those priorities, bringing those together to really synthesize some strategic objectives and goals for the district as we move forward. So that process typically would take place in a year. We'd have a lot of face-to-face groups, and we've had to adapt as we've done everything in the year of COVID. And so we will begin that process really in January, and we would have, the goal will be to try to bring some closure through June so that we can get on the path for our next plan for the next 5 years. So that will involve virtual meetings now, not face-to-face meetings, but always welcome participation from parent council and representatives here. And so you'll hear more about that. We'll do a brief presentation on Tuesday night at the board meeting to talk first with the board about this truncated process. One thing I will share, a new part of this process, we are creating a profile of a graduate. We haven't had that before. So we have our mission, our vision, but what's different with a profile of a graduate is it really states what academic, interpersonal, like what competencies we expect from our students once they go through our program K-12. And so I think that that's really kind of an exciting new component to say, what do we all expect out of Plymouth Canton students? We talk about that expectation, but to really see and be able to agree upon those competencies will be a part of this process as well. So stay tuned, because I would welcome all involvement in terms of those stakeholder groups and feedback, and from this parent group in particular. I think that that is so important. Another part of the planning process is kind of COVID related. That's also going on simultaneously is the plan for the secondary students return. As you know, we've moved forward with returning our elementary school students to an in-person model and a hybrid model. And we're looking to do the same thing for our high school and middle school students. And so that planning is taking place right now. Was that a month ago, Nick, where we did the survey of our families? And then we had that pause. So the team is coming together to look at the possibilities to begin to get our secondary students back. Hopefully second semester is what our goal and our commitment. So those are kind of the two big projects that are happening right now as we continue to try to navigate the world of COVID. So I'll stop there and open up for some questions.
Well, we had quite a few questions that came in from parents. The interesting perspective that I'll have everybody on the call and watching later keep in mind is that a lot of our questions came in from parents in November, from November 13th, up until November 17th, 18th. So it's important to keep in mind we were in a different time phase as far as our elementary safe start. Our students were in the classroom, and a lot of we had about 37 responses and questions come in from parents throughout the district, much like comments and questions that are coming directly to you, varied in great differentiation as far as the concerns and the type of questions and perspectives that families are coming from. I do want to say that 15 of our questions or our comments can be summed up with a lot of the same idea. I'm just going to read a couple of it. So again, November 13th to the 17th, when their elementary students were in, and they were saying, I wish to continue virtual until this is safe. Why can't we continue virtually until it's safe and cases of COVID are coming back down to the normal range, whatever we will consider to be normal range? At what point will the district move back to all online? And with other districts going back to virtual, are we planning to do the same? So now in our perspective, knowing that we did in fact move back to virtual, we kind of were able to sum up the question that a lot of parents had on their minds by asking, what is the model that P-CCS is using to determine whether or not it's safe for, at this time, elementary students, but later on middle school and high school students to attend school via our hybrid model that we have implemented?
That is a great question, and I will take a stab at it because it's not an easy answer. I think we talk about metrics. There's an assumption that we have one number that determines, if we reach this positivity rate, then we're going to shut down, or if we reach this, then we'll remain open. But there's a lot of factors that we consider. And so just according to our roadmap alone, there are like 6 factors that we have to take into account, and we study really daily. And that looks at the test positivity, the number of cases. We look at the hospital, how hospitals are impacted. We look at the transmission rates, not just in our local county, but also in our municipality, all the different municipalities. And then we take a look at what's happening right here in our schools. And so as we said early on, sometimes we may have to make a decision that's based just on a classroom that has to move into a virtual model, or looking at an entire school, or in this case, we're at a space where we have put the district on pause. So a lot of the factors on, epidemiological factors, medical consultation, I think I want to clarify here, health department doesn't make decisions for us. We work in consultation with the health department. So we do weekly briefings with the health department, talk specifically about what's happening in schools, and get recommendations. They've always said at any point that they believe that it was not safe, and that is a word that people define the word safe differently. But as medical experts looking at all those factors, if there's a place where they believe it is not safe, that they would recommend that we move into a virtual setting. So we've utilized that as with consultation to be able to keep open for many, many weeks. And then, as everyone knows at this time, we had a definitive recommendation from them to consider a pause, and we did follow that recommendation. So that's one aspect of it, is the metrics and all of those factors. We also look to our human resources as a potential trigger. So we have a mitigation plan that is in place. It is approved by the health department, and that really talks about all of the factors that we should adhere to prevent the transmission or spread of COVID-19 in our buildings. We cannot guarantee that it will not be here. As we know, I think at this point this month, the latest number, I think we're up to 479 cases that are either positive, probable, or impacted as being a close contact. And a close contact is defined as someone who is less than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. So that's quite a big number for us. We look at our human resources to say, when transmission does, I was talking about mitigation, not the human resources, the mitigation plan. So we know that COVID-19 will exist, but how are we able to prevent it from spreading? And so it's looking at wearing, proper PPE, hand hygiene, physically distancing where possible. So the different strategies that we have in place, we get approval through the health department, and we had actually really high ratings on our mitigation plans. And I will say, we continue to be proud of just our experience is that we are not having high incidence of transmissions within our schools. So although I give you that number of 479 is being the number that we're dealing with, the transmission is not there, especially in our elementary schools, meaning that there's not an epilink. And an epilink is defined as one person who is positive, and because of exposure to another person in that environment, that's considered an epilink or a source of transmission. So what we're mostly experiencing is people that come in contact with the virus outside of school. They've come into school. We're able to have that identified. We work, our nurses have done just an amazing job with identifying close contacts, and then we put people on quarantine and move them out of the environment to prevent further spread. So that has really allowed us to remain open in that environment. What happens as a trigger or a factor is when our human resources start to get impacted and they're strained. And so as teachers are becoming either probable or positive cases or having to quarantine because of close contact, that's 14 days, then we have to get a substitute in to cover the class. And honestly, there's a substitute shortage across the state. We were experiencing that in P-CCS. We did took some action to increase the salary for our subs to just try to be more competitive with our local districts to try to get people here in place. We want to definitely make sure that we don't want just a body in front of our kids. We want high quality instruction to continue. So that struggle then had us having to fill classes, unfilled classes. Sometimes we would have 9 to 10 classrooms that were not covered because a sub couldn't pick that up. So we were pulling our resource room teachers, our interventionists, our English learner teachers to cover the classroom, which then begins to impact the learning of those students that receive support services from those teachers. And so that's kind of a trigger for us when we get to a point where we don't have the human resources necessary for the continuity of learning, that we need to consider a pause. Another piece would be financial resources if we weren't able to get enough PPE, or if there's, like a demand. We're not dealing with that right now. We have plenty of PPE and thankful for even all the federal CARES money that has allowed us to have an adequate supply of that. But that would also be another indication. So I know a lot of times people think, oh, we're at level E, and does that mean that just because we're at the highest level, we shut down? Nope, that doesn't necessarily mean that. That's one of the factors. So there are multiple things that we look at. All of those factors that I talked about earlier, looking at transmission, what's happening in our school, looking at our human resources and how we're impacted by the positive cases. Are we able to continue with the continuity of learning? And then we make decisions, either school-based, classroom-based, or district-wide. Now, honestly, we truly were moving forward with just a plan for pausing to December 7th, I think, was our original plan, because we had started to have, we were struggling with covering our classes. And we thought, if we give this opportunity for our current staff that is on quarantine to go through their 14-day cycle, we knew that Thanksgiving was coming. There was an anticipation that through the holidays, maybe some families may gather, and there was a continued surge, but thinking that that would allow us to begin programming again on the 7th. And we were fully intended to do so. And then of course we had the initial conversation that came from the Michigan Department of Human Health and Services that did the pause for high school. That didn't affect us because they kept K-8 open. But then subsequently we received that notification from the health department, which was that strong recommendation. And as I said, that was the first time that they were really that definitive. And they were looking at the epidemiological data. They were looking at, they're the medical experts. I will say that we are the educators. We work in consultation. We absolutely make the decision locally in terms of what's best for our community, but taking all of that into account. Their recommendation was that we pause through January the 15th. And really kind of that same idea is getting on the other side of the holidays. They were really concerned with the surges that were being experienced. In Canton alone, I want to say we're the 3rd highest number of cases in Wayne County, behind Dearborn, and I don't want to say the wrong numbers, not coming to my head, but I think we're I don't know if Livonia is before us, but we are the 3rd highest. So they were looking at those surges, looking at hospital rates, looking at positivity rates. At that time, I think we were 15.5% when they sent that initial recommendation. And so we did make that hard decision to move into our virtual model at that time. Because we extended it beyond the 7th, we did go to the original virtual schedule just to try to increase opportunities for live instruction with teachers. And I know, like we said, any decision we make, it will be favorable for some and problematic for others. We initially just started that cohort schedule just to try to keep some consistency for a couple of weeks, but realizing we were going to be there for a longer time, we've reverted back to this remote schedule. And so we continue to monitor. We continue to receive our positive cases, report it, and track where our staff is in terms of quarantine, with still the anticipation of returning, the full anticipation of returning to school on January 19th, if all of those factors are in place and allowing us to do so. I know that was a long answer.
I welcome your explanation. I think was great, because so many of our parents, I think you just addressed a good another 20 questions that were sent, because I think a lot of questions, and depending on, you know, there are parents who are asking questions, like for example, you just addressed, you know, when is the district going to make decisions where it's deemed unequivocal that children should be in face-to-face. I think where a lot of our leaders have said that that is the best thing for our students, especially our younger students, to be face-to-face. You just described a lot of the different criteria that needs to be considered when you are making that decision, that things can't be unequivocal one way or the other, because there are so many pieces of criteria and different metrics to take into consideration. Especially too, when we were all discussing this initial situation, we were looking at, you know, a good or safe positivity rate being 5%. We've gotten so much higher since then, and maybe our community has tolerated a lot more, but it is a much different situation than what we were first experiencing. Given that we are, you know, we were talking about Thanksgiving and Christmas, and a couple parents had sent in a question referring to holidays. And I know that our holidays are not going to be, that the time coming back from holidays aren't going to be in person at this time. But if we take into consideration after January 19th, what types of mitigation or plans is the district looking ahead to minimize risk after holidays and after breaks, when we have, you know, families who might end up being positive, or rates may go up higher after holidays or after breaks when people have traveled or gotten together with larger groups?
So that's a great question. Our original thought in doing the December 7th was just around this Thanksgiving and the anticipation of family gatherings and a possible surge. And we actually at that time had a meeting with the health department, and they said it's a 50-50 chance, because if, you know, we really are saying schools are safer places for kids in the environment, because while they're there, they are following the mitigation strategies that we have in place. And once they're outside of school, then that could just depend. It's not regulated as great. And so they said, you know, that strategy, on one hand, you would say, you know, that could be a good strategy, but it's also a risk if people aren't doing their part as a community to still follow those mitigation strategies. But we still thought it was the right thing to do, because as I said, we were having problems with our, you know, just being able to staff classes and providing the high quality in-person instruction. So we thought at that time, if that was successful, we would then continue possibly that to explore it again after Christmas, but we wanted to kind of wait to see how it goes. Now, because of this recommendation, where the health department, with all that was going on, said better to take this chance and get on the other side of all of these potential gatherings around the holidays, that's how they actually came up with the January 15th date. If they look at that last holiday in that series of January 1st being the new year, then 14 days, which incubation period would go to the 15th, and then their recommendation then would return that following week. We already had that Monday off, so that's why we're starting on the 19th. So I think probably looking at this whole period and seeing if that is successful, watching their epidemiological models anticipate continued increases over the next few weeks, and we are experiencing that. We saw a slight decrease in Canton, although Canton is still so high in the county, a slight decrease this week, but still Plymouth and Plymouth City both increased again again this week. So I think that it is a collective discussion of our whole community, and I am confident we can do it, but it's that we all have to just work during this time period to make those difficult choices. And I don't want to be preachy, but just if possible to just follow all mitigation matters, because I think we all can agree that the best place for kids is right here in person. And I do believe with our mitigation strategies in place, if we have the staff that is healthy and able to be here in front of kids, we can continue with in-person learning. Now, I will say the challenge is a lot different at the secondary level, and we have not begun that process yet. And I think the older that the kids get, that is going to be even more difficult. But I do feel like, you know, there's a difference with elementary because we can cohort the students and keep them from moving and transitioning as much as secondary. But, you know, you think about the complications of the park alone. I know a lot of times people want to compare us. Why aren't you doing the things if other schools are able to? But there's no one that has that same experience that we have at the park. So even with 1,000 kids doing the virtual academy, we're still looking at 5,000 kids on a campus, and even in a hybrid model, that would be 2,500 kids, and that will be difficult. We have to see ourselves more as like a small college campus with that. But really still, with our plans in place, working, as I said, on the secondary reentry and how we can begin to get our students back at that level. And I think that we'd have to then use that time period to say if there's another holiday or what's going on in the community, is that something that we would consider as another mitigation strategy to take pauses along the way. You know, ultimately, I think if we can continue with continuity once we're back in person, to stay in person as long as possible, that's a good thing. But once again, it's just all about those factors that are in place to be able to do so.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have just 2 questions, and I know I'm letting Nick Brandon know it wouldn't be a parent council meeting unless we went over our time. So we've got two questions that I have picked out, but you've done a great job at addressing several questions ahead of time before I have even asked with your thorough explanations. One is a comment, and is coming from a kindergarten parent, and her comment is, I know, coming from the opposite perspective of the parents who were worrying about you know, not being in the classroom, is the comment is, please return to face-to-face as soon as possible. My special needs child thrives in the classroom. She struggles tremendously with virtual learning and speech therapy and occupational therapy with so much of our students who do more than one aspect of their lives online. And she also commented and asked why that physical therapy and OT were provided by Wayne and Wesleyan School District, and which I just realized that they have not been in person at all. So what are some of the aspects that we could or even resources that we could pass along to parents where their special needs child is trying to be successful in an online situation?
So definitely, it's a great question. Has to be a partnership in communication, and we are allowed, and we've said from this, not allowed because we're the ones that make the decision. Once again, Wayne County can't require that we're shut down, but even as a part of their recommendation to say for students with special needs, if there's certain services that need to be provided in person, then that is allowable to do so. So we are working to make sure that environment, we say that although our students are learning remotely, schools are open, and to be able to provide services for students such as speech therapy or individual OT or PT that is necessary, we are able to do that. My heart does break, as you know, I am a parent of a child with special needs, and so I watch her struggle virtually, and she has to have the support of a person with her. She's not going to be able to navigate that environment independently. And so it's definitely a challenge. So you weigh both, and my advice would just be work with your resource room or your case manager, your team as a parent, to just talk about the things that can be made available, and we stand ready to be able to bring students in either individually or small group during this time period. And I know that the Student Services Department is also working on, might be a little bit more opportunities or more that is like scheduled opportunities, just with smaller groups coming out as well. So they're working to see how to meet that. We do we are required to make sure that we remain in compliance with IEPs, and so we want to make sure virtually or in person, whatever it takes to do that, we are able to do that. But as I said, I realize that is a struggle, and even that hybrid mix of support is not as ideal, and that is not just for students that with IEPs. It's also we have students that are struggling just social emotionally and just aren't doing well with virtual, And so using this time period to create opportunities for students as well that are just struggling, that might just need that in person, is, you know, individually or small group. We're still working to provide that during this extended pause because it's important to be able to do that.
Thank you. And I'm going to actually put two questions together here so you can bear with me. There were so many of our questions that we wanted to get in. The first question came from a person who works at the University of Michigan Hospital and has 2 elementary students who are both in Safe Start. And he, I'm going to kind of get to the bulk of the question. He asked, is it possible for the district to comment, to put out a written statement reinforcing the rationale and the intent for Safe Start, and state definitively that it won't be converted to a full face-to-face instruction until and unless local public health authorities deem it safe to do so?
Yeah. So as I said, that word safe is defined differently from different people. The health department does use their metrics, their medical experts, their epidemiologists. They're taking a look at what's going on within hospitals, capacities, all of that, all of those metrics that I talked about, and they give us recommendations. And up until this point, the program that we have provided has been, you know, deemed, I'll use that word safe, from our approved mitigation strategies. If we were to move into a full day environment utilizing those same strategies, the difference would be we're looking at having to do lunch. And so we actually do have plans in place to say, if we get to full time, how could we do lunch safely? How could we do recess safely? And so those are things that we've already looked in consultation with them to see how we could implement that. So it's not a possibility to do that, but I want to just manage expectations. It wouldn't be the health department coming to us or the state saying, hey, you need to go to full in person right now. It's still a local decision. And so we take all of those factors to determine. And right now for us at the elementary level, we've deemed this process to be the best process for continuity of learning, focusing on smaller groups, focusing on the reading and literacy, numeracy, social emotional learning, and that compact time and being able to give students in small group that support, and then bringing the next cohort of students in. I think over time we continue to evaluate that, and we deem locally in consultation with that health department, would we move into either a full cohort for a smaller amount of time or a full day cohort. I really do think that that's a decision. So, and when I think about what that question is asking me, I'm trying to see is there's no one that I would say to manage expectations outside of us that would say it's time to convert to a full face-to-face or not. That really isn't the educational decision that we make as we look at all of the other mitigation factors that are in place. And our current mitigation plan that is approved would allow for us to be face-to-face. We have to look at our other factors such as, like once again, our human resources, the plans that we have in place, how is it working? And we've always kind of said we wanted to, the goal with urgency was to get kids back in person. And this was the safest way that we believed that we can do this and deliver on a high quality instructional program. And so we evaluate that, right? It's a constant evaluation to see, is this achieving the outcome that we intended? And if not, what do we do differently? Also looking in light of the health and safety issues. So I don't want to be here on this day, December 4th, saying we will remain half day forever, because that might not happen. And I also don't want to say, hey, in 2 weeks, we're going to come back to full face-to-face. So we have to continue to monitor that, make decisions, and try to, with transparency, educate and communicate along the way. So it's just not a, hey, tomorrow we're going to be full face-to-face. So I don't know if I really answered that question, but I tried.
I think you did. I think due to our time, I cut out a lot, but this parent was communicating that I think being in Safe Start, he was concerned that a lot of the public communication was, if you wanted it to not be in the classroom, you shouldn't be in Safe Start, you should be in Virtual Academy. I think what he was looking for as a medical professional is he was concerned that the comment of, if you didn't want to be in the classroom, you should be in Virtual Academy, what was something he was concerned about, because he wanted there to be a consideration of medical information going into that decision.
Yeah.
I think that's, if I can sum up his.
And I will say that's been a hard part for me to see sometimes when families say things, and I know people are, I always assume positive intent, and I've tried to say we can't judge any family. Everybody's making the decision that they believe is best for their child, and Safe Start has a different understanding for some, but it doesn't, like, yes, people chose Safe Start because they want in person, but they also are concerned about when they believe, as again, that definition of safe, it's safe to do so. And so when parents sometimes say, hey, well, you should have just done Virtual Academy. Well, some people don't want the Virtual Academy the whole time, but it really is, and that's hard because that's on trust that we're just not making irrational decisions. We do take a lot into consideration as we make those decisions around Safe Start. So it's difficult. I understand both sides of it, but I just ask that all continue to respect each other in their decisions. And the biggest difference that I see in Safe Start and virtual is that parent then has the full control over when, and then Safe Start, they're working with us and having to trust us to say when we're in and out of a virtual environment. And that's just not an easy place because we'll all have different perceptions of when that is. And I think for us, I just need to continue to do a better job of communicating that rationale of the when and the why, so that people understand, even though they don't agree, they can speak to and can understand why we make decisions that we make.
Yeah, I think that's important. Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to thank you for going over with our time. I know that we kept you here longer than our meeting was allotted, but I think considering the names and faces I still see here, everyone was interested in getting that. I do want to, were there any other comments or questions from those of us who are in the meeting?
Hi, Judy. I have a quick question. Ms. Merritt, I was wondering if the district is thinking about getting survey or feedback from students and parents about how it's working virtually. So there's a lot of good things, but there's a couple of things that has been a struggle, and like getting assignments, you go to class and then your assignments can be assigned when you're not in class time and when assignments are due. So at least with my son, we could be having, assignments due on a Sunday night or by Saturday night at a certain time. So I don't know if the district has looked at getting any feedback to see what things are working and what things can be improved upon.
So it's a great question. I know that there was a component of that initial survey in terms of in-person to try to get at that experience for students and families to be able to share. And that information was then taken and shared with the individual buildings so that they can make contact specifically with the families, because I think sometimes what we've experienced is a student may do well academically, maybe they're still earning a 3.5, 4.0, but they're really struggling in that virtual environment. And sometimes because the grades and attendance are fine, that's not a trigger for anyone to know that something is going on. But we did hear some things in that survey that said, I'm really struggling in this space. And so being able to make those personal connections at the school level to see how to better support students is really the work that is being done now. And I know that they are having conversations. We did a special workshop at the board to just share some of those individual things that are happening at the school levels and receive some more feedback from about additional things that we could do to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all students. And so I don't know, will that come in a survey, but just know that that is on the radar of the schools to work individually with their students that they know are on the bubble and struggling, and some that they may not know and may not necessarily come forward themselves to self-advocate for some additional support.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, did we have any other comments or questions, details to add? I want to thank you, Superintendent Merritt, for being here, for giving up your time today for our meeting. I want to thank all of our parents and administrators and staff who are on the call with us. I want a huge shout out to Nick Brandon. Thank you so much for running our whole entire meeting and connecting all of us parents and district. He's a big part of our parent council bridge that, you know, helps us communicate, and we wouldn't be able to do this without you. So I really appreciate all of your help and support and putting up with all of my last minute detail and requests and things. I appreciate that. For everyone who is on the call, our parent council board and everyone involved, I greatly appreciate everyone's time. We are going to make sure that we include several things. I know very many families are asking, what can we do to get involved? What can we do to give back to those parts of our communities, our district, our community who are in need? I want to, on behalf of Parent Council, I want to extend our condolences to our board after having lost their staff member, Kathy Lopez. And just this recent time, I want to let families know, because I know a lot of you have reached out and asked, you know, can we still donate books in memory of Kathy Lopez? And I do want to mention that in the LPT in 3, Nick gives a very great description of how those donations of books have now transferred to donating to Building Bridges Therapy Center, in memory of Kathy Lopez, who was a special services and parapro who helped with special needs children in our district. So that is a great way to give right now. I also want to, on behalf of Plymouth Goodfellows campaign, note that tomorrow, Saturday, December 5th, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., if you see many of our NHS students, many of our community members who are doing the collection for Plymouth Goodfellows, they are going to be helping families in need during this season. You can go to plymouthgoodfellows.org and just simply donate there. Or if you see those NHS students and community members volunteering in front of businesses like the Picnic Basket and the Coffee Bean and Sun and Snow Greek Islands all over Plymouth, where they will be doing their annual paper sale and taking donations, you can also email Julie Johnston at P-CCS-K12.com, and she has a Sign Up Genius where you can help do for the collection there. And we also mentioned EEF, which is a great way to donate and give back to people in need in our community right now. Those details will be in our minutes, but I wanted to make sure that people have the timely information. Thank you all so much. I appreciate everyone being here, and we'll see you in January.
And thank you so much to the Parent Council Board and Judy Hart for your leadership. And once again, this video will be archived on YouTube very soon, and people can check in and watch the meeting in retrospect should they wish. Thank you so much, Parent Council.
Thank you.
Great seeing everyone again.
Hi, thank you.